Hi class, in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about the Works Cited page. So every essay that you submit needs a Works Cited page, or sometimes it's called a reference page. And this is not just in English class, but in every class that you take. Any written assignment that you submit that has other sources that you've used or cited in your paper requires you to add this extra page on your essay that lists all of the sources that you've used to write your paper. And MLA is one way of formatting this page in your essay, but there are other ways, APA, Chicago style, etc. And in English we use MLA style. So there's some components that you're going to need to include for each different reference that you have listed in your Works Cited. You're going to need to track down the author of the source, if that's available. You're going to need to find the title of the source. This might be the article's title or the name of the poem or short story that you're reading. The title of the container, and the word container just means the larger book or the larger website or whatever it is, the source that you're using. Sometimes it's called a container source. So we'll look at some examples of what that means. Any other contributors that, translators, editors, that kind of information. In some cases, there'll be a version number if it's multi-volume. Or if there's a certain volume and issue number, those can be included. If there's a publisher name, you can include that as well. Date of publication, and the location here just refers to either the URL or the DOI if that's available. So it's that specific number tracking that source. And if you look at the location, it should be very easy to find just from looking at your reference. So basically this is all sort of information that you would give to another person that would help them find the source easily. So it just makes it easy for us to sort of track down all of the sources that you use to write your paper. So let's take a look at it at kind of a blank template for what this might look like in your Works Cited. So here we have just a blank one. So you include the author's last name here. So you want to include last name first, and they're going to be listed in your Works Cited in alphabetical order. So the last name of the author who wrote the source that you're citing, and then their first name. So in MLA style, you write the full first name. In APA style, you would just use the initial, but here you want the full first name. You include the title of the source. So this is the essay's title, or the name of the episode, or the name of the poem. The specific title of the document that you're looking at. Then you have the title of the container, and it's in italics. So you'll notice also there's formatting. The article is in quotation marks. The title of the container is in italics. So that means you have to italicize a website's name, or a newspaper's name, or the book or anthology's name if the essay is contained within a book. The other contributors, this may or may not be relevant to the source that you have, but sometimes a text will have a translator, an editor, someone else's name there, so you could also include that information. It might be multiple editions, so it might be the second edition of the book, so you can include that in there. Sometimes you're just given volume and issue number. So say for a journal article, you would include the number. The publisher's name for a book, Obviously, this information is important, so if you have a hardcover book or like a hard copy, you include the publisher, you will include the publication date if it's available, and then the location. So this is the page numbers plus the URL or DOI to that article. Also, the date of access, so when you accessed that information. So let's just take a quick look at an example of this in a Works Cited, and we'll note some differences. So here's a sample Works Cited page, and usually your Works Cited will come on its own page, so you'll, at the very end of your essay, the Works Cited should be on a new page. And then you're going to list them alphabetically, so all your sources. So, start with the A's, last names that start with A's, B's, C's, D's, etc. You'll notice everything is double spaced throughout the Works Cited. So these are things that you can also do in your Works Cited page. You would have a page number up in the top right with your header, if this was your essay. But here we just have an example. So this is, the author's name is Cornelia Dean. So her last name is Dean. And that's what's listed first. First name, Cornelia. Then there's a period. And then we have the title of, in this case, it's an article called The Executive on a Mission, Saving the Planet. And the title is placed inside quotation marks. And there's a period separating the title from the container. And in MLA style, you capitalized all of the major words in the title. Then we have the container. In this case, it's the name of a newspaper, the New York Times, and this information is in italics. And then you have date of publication. So this is a comma, and then the date of publication. So we have 22 May 2007. And then we have the location. So this is the URL where that source. So if I just plugged in this URL to, I opened up a Google or opened up Google and placed, cut and paste this address in, it should take me directly to this article. So that's what a DOI or URL does. And then the date accessed, so 29th May 2019. And you'll notice just the formatting of the dates. You list the day, month, year. So that's a typical web citation. You include the author if it's available. If there was no author, then you would use just the title and have that information. So say there was no author for this article, then I would have to just use the title as the main source, and it would be listed in the same way, but I would have to, again, move it around so it's in alphabetical order. So yeah, EB comes before EX, so you just list them in the same alphabetical order that way. Other ones, so let's just go down here. This is a journal article. But it's not a journal article that they've found using a database, so this is probably hard copy then. But they have the author's name, the title of the article, the title of the container, in this case the journal's name, volume, issue number, year, and pages. If it was an electronic article, you would also include the database, the DOI, and the date accessed. So that's the information if you have online articles or through a database. You would need to include that information. If you're using a film, you cite the name of the film first, and then you could include the director's name, the publisher, in this case Paramount, and the year it was released. So whichever source you have to identify what kind of source that is, and then it will help you figure out what exactly your citation should look like. So I don't expect you to know how to do this just off the top of your head. You have to find a good source online or buy an MLA handbook. But I'll share my favorite source. Okay, so my favorite website to go to is the OWL Purdue website, and it's a source for your works cited. It has information for any kind of citation style that you're interested or you're obligated to use in that course. So if you're APA style, if you're MLA style, or any other style you're asked to do, this website has information for that. And it gives you some examples here. So on the side, the basic formatting for an MLA works cited page, and then it gives you different options. So if you're citing a book, if you're citing a periodical, so a periodical is just a magazine article. If you're citing electronic sources, this is very frequently used electronic sources nowadays, so I always go to the MLA electronic sources one. And any other common sources that are also, like television shows or films or anything like that. You might click through these if there's one that's, very individualized that you maybe need a specific rule for. But yeah, if you just go to basic formatting, it gives you the rules of what it's supposed to look like. And then if we go to like electronic sources, for example, it'll give you information on how to, what to include when you're using online sources. So whether you're citing an entire website, it'll give you, a couple of different examples of what to include. If you're just, citing a specific article from a website, it'll give you that information, again, an example of what to include. So a page on a website, an ebook, an image from a website, a web magazine, a scholarly journal article, an article from an online database, an email, a discussion group or blog posting, a tweet, a YouTube video, a comment on a website or article. So all of these are examples of things that you might cite if you used online sources. So there is a specific way of citing that properly in MLA style. So that's included here on the website. So yeah, if you had a specific source, like if you looked up a YouTube video, it's always a good idea to just check and make sure how MLA cites that properly by going to this website and just making sure that you're following the example. So if there's an author's name, the name of the video, the publisher, container, who it was uploaded by, the date of publication, and then the URL. So yeah, that kind of information is on the web. So again, there's always going to be a template or an example that you can follow for whatever source that you pick to use in your paper. So that's the first thing that you should be doing, is to identify what that source is. Is it a book? Is that book in print, something that you picked up at the library, or is it an ebook, something that you got downloaded from online? Is it from a website? Is it the whole website, or is this just a specific article on that website? And does it have an author, or is it just the title and there's no author? Is it an article that you found in a scholarly journal? Was that found in the library, or did you find it from an online database? Was it a blog post? And can you track down the author's name of who blogged it? Is it a YouTube video? What's the title of the video? Who uploaded it? Is it a lecture from a course that you've taken? Can you track down the specific lecture, the date of lecture, the title of the lecture, and who your instructor was? Was it a film? Who published or distributed that film? Who directed it? A television show? What was the name of the episode? Who directed that episode, or who was the distributor? An online image, etc. Right? So all of these are different source types. So you need to be able to recognize what type of source you're looking at. Other ones in English we would use, you might have a short story. You might have a poem. You might have a novel or a book. So these are, common ones. You might have a play. So different sources have different formatting. So that's why it's important to know what kind of source that you have and that you need to include in your works cited page. So when you have a text or a website or article, the first thing you're going to look for is an author and find if there was a specific author who wrote that article. Or if there's an author for the blog post that you're reading, the book or article. So if it has an author's name, that's great, and that's what you're going to use in your in-text citations and as your works cited list. You'll include that name of that author. There might be more than one author. So if you have two, again, you'll list both. If you have three or more, you use the et al. Abbreviation. So if there was more than three, you use et al. So you begin with author's last name, followed by a comma, and then their first name. If there's any initials, you can include that as well. And that ends with a period. Then you have the title of the source. If it's a book, a whole book, or a whole website that you're using, you italicize that title. So in this case, there are examples here: modernism, feminism, Jewishness. It's all italicized. So that's the complete book. So any longer work, like a play, a film, a novel, these are all longer texts, so they would be italicized in your essay and in the works cited. If it's a shorter work, like an article, an essay, a magazine article, a newspaper article, a television episode, a poem, a song, these are all placed in quotation marks. So this is one song by Beyonce, or you might have, one article that's in a journal, then the title is in quotation marks. So things like short stories and poems are included in this formatting. So you need to put it into quotation marks. And then you have the name of the container, which is the name of the book. So if you have a smaller reading, like an article or a poem, it's usually contained in a larger work, either an anthology or a website. So that's the name of the container. And then your works cited, you're going to italicize the name of the larger work or container. So this is the future of the book. This one's called So Many Books, and it's a website. And this one was an episode of a TV show, Pretty Little Liars. So if you have a short story contained within an anthology, you would put the anthology's name here in italics. Next, you include any kind of volume or issue numbers, edition numbers. So if it's in a journal, you include the volume or issue number. If it's, a TV series, you would include the season and episode number. If it's in a volume set, you include the volume number. So that kind of information really helps to track down a specific episode or a specific poem or a specific journal article. You're also going to include the publication date, and usually this is the date that the article was published. If it was a newspaper article, if it was a journal article, there's the date of publication. So you want to include that information in your works cited citation. And then the location information is either the page numbers. If it's a hard copy of a book, you can include the page numbers. And this is the full range of the pages. So the whole article runs from page 74 all the way to page 94. So that's the page numbers, PP dot, and then the number range. Or the location, if it's no pages, they'll usually be a URL or DOI where you can, again, if I was to plug this into a Google page, it would take me directly to that article. So that's the direct location of this source. And so most online articles will come with either a URL or a DOI. DOI just stands for Digital Object Identifier. So it's just a specific number that's been assigned to that specific article. So it's unique to that page. So it will, again, you can plug this information into Google and it'll take you to that exact article. So yeah, you just need the DOI and you can track down the specific source. So it makes it really easy to track sources now. And in this example here, there's a database used to track this article. So it was an academic article. And then the date of access as well. So the date you found the article. So this is also helpful just in case, like sometimes websites, expire or aren't saved past a certain date. So it lets anybody who's reading your paper know that you accessed it on this date. Even though if that website is no longer, functional, they'll still be able to see that, okay, yeah, you caught it at this time, this year, so it's no longer functional, but it once was. So yeah, that's just sort of giving us an insight into when you found that source. And that's basically it that you need to include in your MLA works cited citation. So we'll just take one more look at our example here. Oops. So yeah, so here's your sample works cited page, and you include all of your sources that you've used in your paper. If you have more than one source from the same author, in MLA you abbreviate that with 3 dashes and a dot. So it just means that this author, William Nordhaus, he has 2 sources that I'm using in this one paper. so I'm not going to reuse his name twice. So I'm just going to put dot or dash 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 dot, that kind of thing. So yeah, basically double space everything, list them in alphabetical order, include location, URLs, DOIs when available. If there's no author's names, cite the title of the article that you've read. And that's basically it. Definitely use the OWL Purdue website if you have any questions and you're not quite sure how to cite one. Find an example on there of a similar article or a similar example to the source that you're using.